I work in that side.
All right, everybody.
Is it live right now?
Let's go what we have over here on this model. I'm pointing at what structure this is. It's actually the larynx. It's two larynx and trachea. This is the windpipe. Esophagus isn't really shown here. Esophagus would be a bit more posterior. This is to the larynx and trachea. So, what kind of membrane is lining the larynx and trachea? The mucous membrane. M-U-C-O-U-S. Mucous membrane. What shown here is the liver. What covers the liver? Serous. So mucus for the larynx and trachea, and esophagus do for the esophagus. Serous for the liver. Here we have the nasal cavity. Read the nasal cavity. What's that? It's lined with mucous membrane. It's a respiratory tract lined with mucous membrane. Here I'm at the shoulder joint. It's a very movable joint. Synovial. Lined with synovial membrane. Any questions on those membranes? And then here is a model of skin. This is the fat down here. This is fat, so I'm not pointing at fat. And it's also not the thin layer of areolar right epithelium. What is this tissue right here? Adipose is down here. Dense irregular. Most of this dermis is dense irregular. This is dense irregular. It's this general region. Dense irregular. The areolar is only in this area where it's kind of wavy. The dark part is epidermis. Is epithelial tissue. This very thin part right here is epithelial. What is it? Cutaneous membrane, what does that mean? Cutaneous membrane is front of both the epithelium, the stratified squamous, as well as areolar and dense regular. So all of this, everything except adipose is cutaneous membrane. That's that. I was actually asking for the connect to the membrane. More questions, clarifications? All right. Welcome back. On the practical field.
Are you trying to give us white hair?
Yeah. Let's do it over the summer because the summer's crazy. Imagine taking this in 6 weeks.
Yeah, fuck
So they gained like 10, 15 pounds. Yeah, sorry. Well, you can do it. One practical. You got 6 more quizzes, 6 more practicals. I'll have this graded by the end of today. You should have it graded by the end of today. I've already graded your microscope thing. Right when you did it, so. Really? Yeah, it just depends. Every person's different. So some people think the practical is harder, some people think the quiz is harder. Everyone's tuning in the lab check too? Whether online or here, or both? We were going to talk a little bit more about the skin, so if you could get your notes out, I'm going to just finish talking about the epidermis, and then I'll give you time to work on lab check 2, 3, which is due next Monday. Wait, you have class Monday?
No, we don't. Next
We don't have class.
Maybe she was in
Yeah, I guess it's President's Day. Yeah. All All right. Yeah, and there's a discussion due tomorrow, so double check that. Jose. Oh yeah, we're doing that. Thank you. What do you call it? Activity. We have four groups that still need to perform. I have yeah, you should go right now.
Yeah.
So
Really?
if you go to the homepage, I have your transcripts right here. You can access them. So it is PDF. Who wants to go next? Who still need to go? Yeah? What's your group? Non-keratinized? Okay. All right. Come on up, non-keratinized, stratified squamous endothelium. If you open up these PDFs, I have your scripts along with pictures of the histology and where they're found. So I hope this is a good resource for you, so you remember what the histology looks like and where you find it.
You did that?
I didn't take the pictures, but I created these documents. Yeah. That's why I want you to type it out to save me a step. Okay, so non-keratinized stratified squamous group, please, whenever you're ready. Go ahead. Go for it.
Ever wonder why skin on our arm is different from inside of our own mouth?
There's a reason it's that way. That's why we have
Stratified?
Squamous epithelium.
non-keratinized.
Let's break it down.
Stratified means multi-layer. Squamous is flat cell.
Epithelium is what covers and protects the body.
Non-keratinized is a moist surface area.
Think of it like this. Would you want the skin of your arm to be in your mouth?
No.
That's why we have non-keratinized mucous membrane.
Just to name a couple, it lines our esophagus and oral cavity.
They help us filter the air we inhale.
They help us digest our food. They protect us from many ingredients that our bodies may face.
Have you ever swallowed food not fully broken down?
For example, as a salsa verde Dorito, everybody's stuck in your throat.
Well, thanks to the mucous membrane lining in our esophagus, it saves our lives. Thanks.
Thank you, stratified squamous epithelium.
Thank you, non-keratinized stratified squamous. Who's next? What's your group? Stratified total? All right, stratified cuboidal. Go ahead, whenever you're ready.
Let me introduce to the new mom. Her name is Danielle, and her baby was born last month. And thankfully, she had a healthy body. Unfortunately, there's a problem. Not with the baby's health, but with the fact that baby's non-stop crying. This is because her baby, Josie, seems to be hungry all the time, and protein milk isn't producing enough milk.
Stratified cuboidal epithelium, which is multi-layered cube shape, allows for protection and high level of secretions, which is necessary for lactation. Unfortunately, Danielle and other moms out there don't produce as much secretion gland as the baby needs.
I sure wish there was a way to improve my lactation for my baby.
There is. We have came up with a very tasty gummy that full with certified cuboidal epithelium cells that your body is locking. All you need to do is take one in the morning and one at bedtime, and you'll be exploding with milk before you know it. I'm so glad.
This product is very affordable at only $15.99. Please keep out of reach of the children. be aware that they can be very addictive, and if you take more than you need, then you might start lecting in places you don't want, like your cheeks and buttocks.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Thank you both. Yeah, it's your. All right, next up is pseudo-stratified columnar.
I'll do that for you next week.
All right, I'm sorry, go ahead. Yeah, underground.
You're good. Don't you just hate it when you have dust in your lungs?
Yes, it happens to me all the time, especially when I'm working. Oh, you know what's even worse? When you're constantly sneezing. Because of all the acid in the air. I'm so over coughing up gross green-colored saliva. I wish there was something to help sweep out all these foreign and unwanted materials. If I don't figure out how to get rid of this gas, then I will get pneumonia.
But wait, have you ever heard of Set No More?
Here, take this pill. It will help you stop. It'll help stop your coughing and sneezing.
The main product in Set No More is pseudostratified columnar.
It's an epithelial cell commonly found in the trachea and nasal cavity.
This pill will be dissolved once ingested.
Once dissolved, the magic goes into effect.
Set No More will enhance your growth of cilia in both your trachea and nasal cavity.
What happens when my cilia grows?
When cilia is grown, the mucociliary that will be enhanced.
This will allow dust and soot to be efficiently removed.
Thank God for Set No More. Now I can breathe clearly.
In addition to the trachea, you can get it for your nasal if you buy it now.
Warning, taking too much might deteriorate your lungs.
Open the door to
Set No More.
Nice work. We have one more left, right? Come on. Oh, wait. Your group. We'll talk in a second. Yeah. You're on. The transitional?
Yeah.
Before they go, anyone I can find transitional. I also have the connective tissues up here because the other class is doing connective tissue, so you can see their skips as well. All right, transition. Go ahead.
Oh my God, I have to go to the bathroom so bad, but I can't leave class. What do I do? I have an idea.
I may have the same idea.
It's called transitional epithelium. What is that? Never heard of it.
It allows for extensive stretching
Stretching for where?
for your urinary bladder.
It also helps you with your renal pelvis, your uterus, and part of your kidney. The cells in transitional epithelium are spread out.
If you don't use this, you're going to be your hands in class.
Although it can be used for secretion or absorption, it only lasts but the expensive stuff.
I have used it a lot. Trust me, it will work.
Where do you get it?
From watering.
Thank you.
No big deal. We'll talk later. Okay. Thank you. Once again, thank you everyone for presenting. I really appreciate it. I hope it's memorable. That's why I'm having you do it, so you remember what each thing is, not just embarrassing. It was embarrassing. It was embarrassing. Don't worry about it. Once again, you find this document homepage under tissues. It's this link here, transcript. It has your classes on epithelium and the other classes on connective tissue. You can get that PDF here and look at look at all the different tissues and transcripts. Cool? All right, now here's what we're gonna do. I'm gonna finish talking about epithelial tissue, so we won't finish chapter 5. I'll just finish talking about epithelial tissue. And this will correlate to what your next lab check when we're talking about the different layers and looking at histology. Yeah, you see, I have no class on Monday, but we do have class Wednesday. And we'll go over the practical next time too. I'll have it graded by next time. It'll be graded by next time. Cool? All right. So we left off talking about the different layers of skin and thick skin and versus thin skin. Thin skin has 4 layers, while thick skin has 5. What's the outer layer of skin called? What's the outer layer of skin called? The outermost layer of the epidermis. Stratum corneum. Let's assume this side is thick skin, so I'm going to make it thicker. This is stratum corneum is much thicker. Over here. Stratum corneum is really thick and thick skin. It's still there in thin skin, but it's thinner. It's mostly dead, flaky cells. The layer that thick skin has, but thin skin doesn't, it's called stratum lucidum. The layer deep to that is spinosum. Stratum. No, not spinosum, granulosum, sorry. So sorry. Granulosum. And then spinosum. The deepest layer, it's just one layer of cells. So most of these layers have multiple cell layers within them. But this layer down here, stratum basale. And these cells, while still technically squamous, they look the most cube-like. They have the most volume. Everything that I've drawn here is part of the epidermis. Epi means on top. Dermis is the layer that's down here. We'll get to the dermis later on. Everything here is the epidermis. Okay, let's go over the different layers of the skin, of the epidermis. Let's start with basale. Stratum basale. It's the basal layer. It's the bottommost layer. Stratum basale. I'm going to turn the lights a little. Actually, Amy, could you shut the shutters a little bit? Shown here is stratum basale. It's just one layer of cells. It's not always straight. It's, in fact, mostly curved. So if you follow my hand, this layer is stratum basale. You have to hold it down to close. Yeah, keep holding it. There you go. Stratum basale is the deepest layer of the epidermis. We know it's the epidermis when it's, yeah, that's great. Yeah. We know it's the epidermis because it's darker. It's darker than the dermis. It's much lighter here. Stratum basale, it's the deepest layer. It's the one where mitosis happens. There's a high mitotic rate. Cells in the stratum basale undergo mitosis, and then they push upwards because the ones on the very top are dead. So this is where cells are born for the epidermis. Epidermis doesn't have blood vessels? No. Does the dermis have blood vessels? Yes. So it also makes sense that these are the ones that are going mitosis because it's closest to the blood supply. They're the ones that can more easily get nutrients. These do not get nutrients and they're dead. Which makes sense. Mason, were you asking me about calluses?
Yes.
Yeah. So if you have excess mitosis, which is stimulated with friction, that leads to more mitosis, which leads to calluses, because you're getting more cells. Question?
In the thin skin, you said that it lacks the stratum. Is it so that means that there's only a little bit, or is there none in there after that?
For lucidum? In thin skin, it lacks lucidum. So is there any lucidum at all in thin skin? There's no lucidum in thin skin. No lucidum. So that's what stratum basality is. The basal layer, it's where mitosis happens. All the cells above it came from stratum basality. So all the cells in these upper layers came from stratum basality. Okay. What kind of cells can you find here? Some of these cells are called melanocytes. They are cells that produce melanin. Some of these cells, the way they appear under the microscope, they have a dark nucleus and they appear like they kind of have a halo around them. A melanocyte, shown here, dark nucleus, but it looks like it has a halo around it. Here too, dark nucleus, halo around it. And in this diagram, it's shown with all these long processes. Melanocyte is a cell that produces melanin. Melanin is a pigment. Just like paint is a pigment, all a pigment is a molecule that has a color. This one happens to have a brownish color the more you have of it. The purpose of melanin production is so that our skin can absorb ultraviolet light. Ultraviolet light, all you need to know about it for this class, because we can go on and on about it in physics. Ultraviolet light is a type of light that can be very damaging to our DNA. It's a type of light that can be very damaging to our DNA. Question?
So would birthmarks be part of that, or is that something else?
Would birthmarks be a part of it? Birthmarks, I don't know exactly why they come about, but they come about because of differential production of melanin or other things. Yes. So if you have a darker birthmark, it's an area of higher melanin production. Moles too. Moles and freckles.
So you're saying the darker you are, the more melanocytes you have?
The darker you are, is it that you have more melanocytes? It's not that you have more melanocytes, it's that they produce more melanin. So melanin is a protein, and our cells can either produce a low amount of it or a higher amount of it. That would dictate how much color you have. And it can also be influenced by sun exposure. If you expose yourself to more sun, you produce more melanin. Just like if you have more friction on your hands, you produce more callus. Your body responds to sun by producing more melanin. That's what a tan is.
If you were to get sunburned, would they die? Or?
If you get sunburned, would these cells die? Yes. And we'll go over the different types of burns coming up once we go over all this. But yeah, cells are dying if you have sunburn. And you turn red. Well, what's red? What's in your body's red? Blood. Blood vessels open up, and that's a whole other thing. It's a response to damage. Just like if you're swollen from any other kind of injury, it gets red. All right, that's one type of cell you can find in stratum basality, melanocytes. Another type of cell that you can find is called a Merkel cell. It's named after some person, probably German, I guess, named Merkel. Merkel cell. In terms of histology, it looks exactly the same as a melanocyte. You can't tell the difference. I can't tell the difference. So if you see a cell with a halo around it, it's either a Merkel cell or a melanocyte. You can see in this illustration, it's again only in the basal layer. So let's say in my drawing here, this is a Merkel cell. A Merkel cell is an example of neuroepithelium. It's an example of neuroepithelium. You mentioned taste buds, your taste cells in your taste buds, your photoreceptors in your eye, like rods and cones. What this means is it is not a neuron, but it can sense things. So if you touch your skin lightly, this Merkel cell gets activated. When the Merkel cell gets activated, it then communicates with a nerve ending. So the Merkel cell itself is not nervous tissue. It is epithelium that communicates with nervous tissue. The Merkel cell sends a signal to this nerve ending, and that nerve ending goes to your spinal cord, goes to your brain. We'll go over that much later. Yeah. For the quiz, would you have a problem with her Merkel cell? Yeah. Well, the quiz, we talked about that Ashlyn who had SIPA, that condition. We would be looking for issues with Merkel cells and the nerve endings that touch the epithelium. So Merkel cell or tactile epithelial cell, it's the same thing. It's for light touch. It helps you detect light touch. Also found in the basal layer. Stratum basal.
So when you said thick skins on your palm and on your
Bottom of the foot.
yeah. So this is thin skin only.
Yeah, sorry. And Merkel cells are only found in your thin skin. So when you touch things with your palms or feet, there are other receptors that get activated, and we'll go over those later. It's not the only receptor for touch. There's other touch receptors. Okay, that's only some of the cells in basal layer. You've got Merkel cells, you've got melanocytes. Most other cells are going to undergo mitosis and move upward. The next layer is stratum spinosum. Spinosum is Latin for spinous. Scientists back in the day thought they looked prickly. I don't know why. I guess they're kind of dotted. So they're also called prickle cells, the cells here. We're just going to call them keratinocytes. They're cells that produce keratin. Once they're born here, they're still immature. Once they move up, they mature a bit, and now they can start producing things. So once they get to the spinous layer, the stratum spinosum, they're producing keratin. Remember, keratin, it's tough, it's waterproof. It's added to the cytoskeleton. So it's added all throughout the cell. So imagine these lines are the keratin. And here's the nucleus, and here's the cell. It's reinforcing the cell, making it tougher and waterproof. It's added within the cell, and some of it's secreted to the outside. So you have a waterproof layer on the outside. These cells are linked together by desmosomes, creating a sheet, a strong sheet. That was one of the answers for the quiz question. Stratum basale had only one layer of cells within it. Stratum spinosum has several. Let's see, this one we can see 1, 2, 3, 4, at least 5 or 6. This whole here, all of that is stratum spinosum. Most of the cells you see there are keratinocytes. There is another cell type here, and it's a very unique cell. It's called a Langerhans or dendritic cell. Langerhans cell, dendritic cell, they're interchangeable. Langerhans is the person's name. Dendritic means it has branches. So you can see the cell here, it has branches. It's a special immune cell. Langerhans cells are immune cells. You remember the process of exocytosis, where you're releasing something from the cell? You have a vesicle of something and you release it. Imagine the reverse process, where you take something in and form a vesicle. Phagocytosis is an example of that, where you bring something in. What do you think the term is for the opposite of exocytosis? Endocytosis. Phagocytosis is a special form of endocytosis where a cell grabs something and engulfs it and brings it in. Remember that animation I showed you of a bacterium being chased down by a white blood cell? It was that process. So these cells are your surveillance in the skin. They're going around in these tissues so they can move. They're going around in these tissues, squeezing their way around these cells and looking for things to destroy, whether it's old cells or something pathogenic. Special immune cell found in stratum spinosum. Right. How do you tell them apart? Good. I forgot to mention that too. Thank you. Melanocytes and Merkel cells are only found in stratum basale. They're not found in our higher layers. They look like you have a nucleus with a halo around it. Similarly, Langerhans cells, nucleus with a halo around it, but they're spinosum, not basal. So a different layer. Yeah. Phagocytosis, what does that mean? Let's say this is a bacterium here. What this cell will do, it'll reach out with its processes. Like imagine like an octopus reaching and grabbing and shoving it in. That's what's happening. It'll engulf it and form a vesicle and bring it to the inside of the cell. Once it engulfs it, what organelle will it bring it to? What? A lysosome. Lysosome, yeah. We'll bring it to a lysosome for digestion. Phagocytosis is a process of bringing it in. Think of it as the opposite of exocytosis. Okay, that's our second layer of up. Our third middle layer for thick skin is stratum granulosum. The word granulosum, what that implies is that it's grainy. Think of like a granule or granola, it's grainy. So when you look at it, it has dark spots. I don't know how you can see it from, I mean, you can see that it is darker here. It's not that thick a layer. It's only a couple, 2 or 3, 4 layers thick. Here's, in this diagram, you can see the spots. It appears that way because now we're producing another protein. Keratin is being produced already. There's another protein being produced. I'm not going to test you the name of it. It's called bradahyaline. I'm not going to test you on that name, but I do want you to know what it does. At this point, we're starting to dehydrate the cell. We're producing this protein that dehydrates the cell. So we have this keratinocyte that's getting dehydrated. We've made it stronger and waterproof, and now we're dehydrating. What happens when you dehydrate living things? They shrink and they die. Hopefully it now makes sense why the cells in strata basalia are bigger. As we move up, they get smaller and flatter. We're dehydrating them and killing them in the process. So this is your last layer of living cells. Stratum granulosum is your last layer of living cells. Okay, if we are in thick skin, we have a stratum lucidum. It is a very thin, light-colored layer. It might only be 1 or 2 cell layers thick. It's very thin. It's not very apparent like the others. So here you can see it's this light-colored layer here. It's kind of all blended. The word lucid, like if you've had a lucid dream, it's very clear. Clearish stratum lucidum. 3 to 5 layers of dead flattened keratinocytes. So by this point, by the stratum lucidum before in thick skin, it's already dead. You only find this in thick skin, but really the big difference in thick skin is that stratum corneum is really thick. So you can see here, this is thick skin. I can't really count how many layers. Let's assume it's like 15, 20 layers at least. Thick layers that are dead and flattened. It's called corneum. The prefix corn means horn. Heard of a cornucopia? What's a cornucopia look like? Thanksgiving tropes? That big like horn-shaped thing full of food? Yeah, it's horn-shaped. Horn means horn. If you've ever felt a horn, it feels just like your nails do. It's made of the same thing. It's keratinized. It's dehydrated, it's dead. Which is why you can cut your nails too, because it's dead cells. Stratum corneum, very, very dead, very dehydrated, it's dry. We need it to be protected. We need it to protect everything underneath it, everything deep to it.
So it's dead, but it still produces keratin.
It's dead, but does it still produce keratin? It does not produce keratin anymore. It's already produced keratin. Starting in stratum spinosum, these keratinocytes are producing keratin all the way up to here, and by this time now we dehydrate them. And it's just the keratin that was already in them. So they already have keratin at this point, from here to here, and then dehydrated and die. It's these cells that flake off all the time, and so we have to constantly replace them when the cell is coming up from stratum basality. How do you remember all that, and why it took me a minute to realize that I was wrong with granulosum versus spinosum? Try using this mnemonic. Mnemonics are just memory tools to help you remember things. Can Luke get some bones, or here's a better one. Come, let's get sunburned. CLGSB. These mnemonics are only good for one type of skin. The thick skin. If it's thin skin, which one do you remove?
No.
Remove the L. So can Luke get some bones, or let's get sunburned, either one, whatever helps you remember, make up your own. Those are the layers of the epidermis. Take a moment. Question.
One, two, three, four.
Raise your hand a few more times. 10 seconds.
Yeah.
All right. So your hands on 3. 1, 2, 3. Talk to someone with a different answer. Go ahead. 1 minute. All right, one more time, please. Let's hear answers. 1, 2, 3. Cool. A 3-cell letter. 1, 2, 3.
Hey.
Yeah. We're in the femoral region, which is where? Upper thigh. Yeah. Upper leg. Thigh region. So it's thin or thick? It's thin, so there's no lucidum. So come get rid of let's get sunburn. CGSB. Is left hand. Other question?
The season.
Why are palms light? Because what? That's a great question, Alan, which we'll answer in a minute. I'll get to that. Good question. Raise your hand a few more times. That's on 3. 2, 3. On 3, say letter. 1, 2, 3.
C.
Wait, what? D. I thought you were all looking forwards. D. Langerhans is the immune cell. What does Merkel do? Sense. It's light touch. Merkel cells are found in Sternum basale. Langerhans are found in Spinosum.
Why would it not be A?
Why would it not be A? Keratinocytes, what do? Their main goal is just to produce keratin. That's all they do. So most of these cells in basale moving to spinosum and up are keratinocytes. Most of these cells are keratinocytes. All they do is grow, produce keratin, and then get dried out. That's all they do. If we're talking about protecting against pathogens, these cells move around, and I think I see why you're saying that.
Yeah.
Maybe I should rephrase this as. I should rephrase this. That's a good point. Let me say, if I phrase it as why.
You should say endocytosis.
Yeah, there it is. That makes more correct. Thank you. That's a good point. It does protect it. Cool. Does that make more sense? If I say that it engulfs it, then it has to be Langerhans. Oh, why? So the Corey thought it might be keratinocytes because our skin in general protects us, and by covering and protecting us, protects us from bacteria. But this is being more specific. Let me show you some skin. Sounds weird. Let me show you. Some skin. In the back, we have several different types of skin. Oh, wait, sorry. Sai had a good question. On our palms and on our soles of our feet, the plantar region, it's much lighter than in other parts of our, everywhere else in our body. Why is it lighter? What must there not be here? Melanocytes, which means you don't produce as much melanin. There's fewer melanocytes here, so there's no low melanin production. Yeah? Yeah, so for everyone, no matter what color you are, it's lighter. Right, is this thin or thick skin?
Thin.
Here, I'll let you compare that with this other one. So keep this in mind. So we were at this ramification, we were at the 100x total. Be drastic, right? What's this? Thin skin. Yeah, so this is thin skin. Let me go back. Sorry. I'm trying to find a flat part. There we go. Yeah, thick skin. These slides aren't perfect. They might appear a bit light, so take a look and try to find the sample first and then put it under your microscope. Sternum corneum is very dry and flaky, so when this tissue is cut, it's not always going to stay together. So here it's together, here it's kind of shredded. So this is still all corneum, down here and up there. Still all corneum. Stratum lucidum is very light. Again, it's a very thin layer. It's just this. This is stratum lucidum. This darker one, spotty looking, what's that? Granulosum, stratum granulosum, it's grainy looking. All of this lighter one, from here to here, that's spinosum, so it follows these waves, these bumps. And just this darkest basal layer is stratum basale. Basale, spinosum, granulosum, lucidum, corneum. In the back, we have thick skin from the palm or sole. We have regular skin, which is just might be called unpigmented or pigmented or something. It's probably thin skin. If it's from the scalp, is that thin or thick? Thin. So there is scalp there too. There's also axillary. Is that thin or thick?
But it has all the glands.
Sorry? It's thin and has all the glands. So if you want to find all of the glands, whether it's sebaceous, apocrine, pseudoreferous, or eccrine pseudoreferous, you can find it all in the axillary. If you're just looking for sebaceous or eccrine pseudoreferous, the scalp is a good one. So pay attention to which slide you're looking for, which slide you need. Because not all of them will have what you need. Yes?
So about melanocytes, where in the summer when you get tan, that increases more melanin.
Yeah, so when you get tan, what's happening is melanocytes producing more melanin. The melanocytes are sensitive to the UV light, just like your keratinocytes, your cells here are sensitive to touch, and they can make more cells. Melanocytes are sensitive to the sunlight, and they'll produce more melanin. We're going to go over that idea next time. But yes, they produce more melanin. That dictates how dark you get. And of course, there's limits with genetics.
So that means Merkel cells after
Merkel cells, do they tell you? Merkel cells don't dictate whether you get calluses. It's every other cell. It's the sense of touch. There's a difference between feeling it, perceiving the touch, and responding to it. So the sense of light touch is Merkel cells. This is from the scalp, and you can see how different it looks. Let me go, again. This is from the scalp. There's the epidermis, the dark wavy layer up there. You can see the dense irregular, very clear here. What are these things, you think?
That's hair.
Yeah, this is hair. Is this longitudinal or cross? Longitudinal. If it appears long, it's longitudinal. It can find glands next to it. What are these grape-like clusters of glands? What are the grape-like clusters of glands that feed into the hair canal? Sebaceous. I guess so. Sebaceous glands. Sebaceous glands. This is the hair follicle. Sebaceous glands are the clusters, the grape-like clusters next to the hair follicle. Light-colored grape clusters, sebaceous glands. What kind of secretion do these cells release by? Sebaceous glands. Where they burst, what's that called? It is where they burst. What is the term? Sorry?
Glastation, is
Try it.
that?
They do, that is a term for when they burst, they lyse. But there's a mode of secretion. I'll give you the three choices. You got apocrine, you got holocrine, and you have Myrtle. Holocrine. It's holocrine secretion. The cells lyse. And so what's the texture of this secretion? It's oily. There's lots of lipid. This is from the scalp. So you've got sebaceous glands up here. This is all sebaceous gland. What are these glands right here? These tighter, round or ovalish clusters, small lumens. What kind of sweat? Not apocrine. We're in the scalp, remember? Where do you find apocrine sweat? Axillary or pubic? So, someone give me the name. I'm waiting. It is American. It is American secretion, but it has a specific name for a sweat gland. It's not apocrine. That's mucus now. Mucus cells are mucus membranes. Eccrine pseudoriferous. Eccrine pseudoriferous. The cells form tighter circles. The lumen is small. So you got your simple cuboidal, sometimes stratified cuboidal, but mostly simple cuboidal. Has a small lumen. I know this is relative. What is small? I'll show you an example where it's big. These are all eccrine pseudoriferous sweat glands. How do you describe this sweat?
Oily.
Not oily. Watery. This is merocrine secretion. This is a merocrine secretion. What does merocrine mean? Well, it doesn't mean watery. What's a mode of secretion? How does it release?
Through the gland.
You're saying that. I want to hear it nice and loud. Exocytosis, yeah. Exocytosis. You can see that in the scalp. This slide is from the armpit, axilla. Thin skin or thick skin? It's thin skin. You can see corneum very well, but it's not as thick as thick skin. All right. What gland, in addition to sebaceous and eccrine pseudoriferous, can we find here? In the axillary skin. We can find sebaceous, which I don't see here yet. We can find eccrine pseudoriferous. We can also find.
I know I did.
I think you did. Apocrine. Apocrine. Well, what's the term for sweat? Pseudoriferous. Apocrine pseudoriferous is also here. Apocrine pseudoriferous has a larger lumen. So this is a relatively small lumen. The lumen for apocrine pseudoriferous is larger. Can you tell which one's apocrine and which one's eccrine? The left is, this is eccrine pseudoriferous. This is the lumen. It's very narrow, very small. This is eccrine pseudoriferous. This is apocrine. You can see the larger lumen, nice and wide.
They usually cluster like that, or
Yeah, are they clustered like this? Yes. Here's why. It's better represented on this model. The whole point of these are to produce fluids, right? Where the fluid gets secreted. Sorry? Towards the outside surface. See, towards the outside surface. They're just tubes. So the tube needs to exit to the skin, but deeper in the skin, it's just this really highly coiled tube. So if you cut the tube like that, it's coiled, you get something that looks like this. This is cut tubes. That's why they look like that. So this is shown intact. This is apocrine. What does apocrine mean? How do you release? Holocrine was bursting.
Growing and shedding.
Shedding. This is shedding. This is shedding the top layer. All right, I'm going to pass out lab check 3. You only got a little bit of time. You got 15 minutes. You got a little bit of time to work on it. We'll have plenty of time next time, I promise. I recommend at least looking at one thing under the microscope today. Look at one thing under the microscope, some kind of skin, and getting accustomed to the different layers, looking for the different glands. When you sketch for your lab checks, please use, as I mentioned before, please use the histology sketch sheets. Please use colored pencils, which are over here. I don't know if I mentioned it to this class, but we have computers and we have hard copies of the lab book, but this must stay in class. Don't bring this home. So if you need to use this in class for any reason, feel free to use it. When you sketch your sketches, and it asks you to draw 2 different things in skin, and on your slide you can see both things, you can just draw it on in one circle. Just label it. So just use as many circles as you need to get whatever it is you need in view. Whether it's on the same circle or a different circle. Different field of view. Okay? Let me know if you have any questions. I got 15 minutes left.